If you are over 60, there is a number inside your Social Security file that could be quietly cutting your monthly check right now. Not next year. Not maybe. Right now. And the hardest part to hear is this: Social Security will not call you, warn you, or tell you to fix it. One retired man found that out by pure luck. He was 68, living in Ohio, sitting at his kitchen table on a normal Wednesday, looking at the same deposit he had been receiving for 3 straight years. Same amount, same routine, nothing seemed off. Then his son pulled up one record online, one record most people never think to check, and in less than 5 minutes, they found 4 separate years of earnings listed wrong. 4 years. They filed one correction form, no lawyer, no fee, no complicated process. And 2 months later, his Social Security check jumped by more than $280 a month, every month, for life. Nobody had ever told him that record existed. Nobody had told him to verify it. Nobody had warned him that one silent error could reduce his retirement income for years. That is what this video is about. There is one Social Security record almost no one checks, one mistake the government usually will not point out, and one free form that can fix it. If you are 60 or older, this is something you need to know, because correcting that record can legally raise your monthly benefit for the rest of your life. Not a one-time payment, not a special bonus, a permanent increase. And if you do not go looking for it yourself, there is a very good chance no one will ever bring it up. My name is Lana Maines. I represent taxpayers directly in front of the Internal Revenue Service, and I spend a lot of time helping people understand the forms, deadlines, and financial rules that affect them most, especially the ones no agency is required to explain clearly. That is why this channel exists, so you can hear about the details before those details cost you money. If you want more videos like this, practical, useful information that can directly improve your monthly income and protect your quality of life, subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week, I break down something specific you can actually act on. The part most people never realize about Social Security. Most people think their Social Security check is based on a simple formula and a filing age. It is not that simple. Your benefit is built on your earnings history. Every job, every paycheck, every year you worked. The Social Security Administration takes your 35 highest earning years, adjusts them for inflation, averages them out, and uses that number to calculate what you receive each month. That means your check is only as accurate as the earnings record behind it. And that is where the problem begins. Because if even 1 year on that record is wrong, if it shows less than you earned or shows 0 when you were actually working full-time, your average gets dragged down. And when that average goes down, your monthly check goes down with it. Maybe by $50, maybe by $90, maybe by more. That may not sound huge in a single month, but over a year, that is real money. Over a long retirement, it can add up to tens of thousands of dollars lost because of an error you were never told to look for. And here is the part that frustrates people the most. There is usually no warning, no red flag, no notice in the mail, no message saying, "This year may be incorrect." The record just sits there, wrong, quietly shrinking every check you receive until somebody opens it and looks closely. 4 types of people most likely to be missing money. Now let's get specific, because this does not happen randomly. There are 4 groups of people who are especially likely to have errors sitting in their Social Security earnings record right now. If you fall into even one of these groups, this is not something to put off for later. It is something to check this week. And I want to go through all 4 carefully, because the people losing money here do not all look the same. 1. People who worked for small businesses. Years ago. If you worked for a small employer in the 1970s, 1980s, or 1990s, pay attention. Back then, many small businesses handled payroll the old-fashioned way. Paper records, handwritten books, basic office systems, a lot more room for mistakes, and a lot less oversight. That meant wages were sometimes reported incorrectly, and those mistakes often stayed hidden because employees never had a reason to go back and inspect their Social Security file decades later. If you worked for a family-owned business, a neighborhood company, a small contractor, a local store, or any operation without a formal payroll department, your record is exactly the kind that deserves a second look. Take Daniel. He spent 4 years in the early 1990s working for a small landscaping company. Solid work, regular pay, nothing unusual. But when he finally reviewed his Social Security statement years later, those 4 years were showing only a little more than half of what he had actually earned. The payroll had been reported incorrectly. He filed a correction using old tax returns, and his monthly benefit went up by more than $280. That money had been missing from his retirement check for nearly 30 years. Think about that. Not because he was denied, not because he filed late, but because no one ever told him to check. 2. People who were self-employed. The second group is anyone who worked for themselves. If you ever ran a small business, worked as a freelancer, did contract work, or earned self-employment income, you need to look closely at those years. Self-employment income is reported differently than regular W-2 wages, and that creates more opportunities for something to go wrong. A year of income might not have been recorded properly. It may have been listed too low. In some cases, it may barely show up at all. And if that happened, the system is building your retirement benefit on a number that is smaller than it should be. That is the kind of mistake people live with for years without realizing it. So if you were self-employed for even part of your career, slow down and inspect those years carefully. 3. People who switched jobs. Often the third group is people who changed employers many times. Every time you started a new job, there was another chance for an error. A payroll clerk types one wrong digit. Your name is entered incorrectly. Your social security number is mismatched. The wages get reported, just not to the right record. And the more jobs you had, the more opportunities there were for one of those little mistakes to follow you into retirement. The years to pay closest attention to are transition years. The years where you left one employer and started another. Those are the years where reporting errors tend to show up the most. If you remember working a full year and the earnings shown look suspiciously low, do not brush that off. That is exactly the kind of clue that leads to a correction. 4. People who change their name. This last group is one of the most common and one of the most damaging. If you changed your name during your working years and did not make sure Social Security updated it correctly, some of your earnings may not be attached to your record the way they should be. The work happened, the paychecks were real, the taxes may have been withheld. But if the name your employer reported did not match the name in the Social Security system, those wages may not have landed where they belonged. This is especially important for women who change their name after marriage or divorce. If you worked under one name for part of your career and another later on, you need to verify that those earnings are connected properly. Because if they are not, years of real work can sit in the system without fully helping the benefit you earned. Why this is time sensitive. Now here is where people make a dangerous mistake. They assume they can get around to this whenever they want. That is not always true. There is a legal time window for correcting earnings records. In general, you have 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the end of the tax year to make a standard correction. That means timing matters. For 2022 wages, the normal window has already passed. In some situations, exceptions still exist. For example, if an employer filed late, if the SSA made a clerical mistake, or if your tax return shows different income than what ended up on your Social Security record. But once the standard deadline is gone, the process can become harder. For 2023 wages, the normal correction window stays open until April 2027. That is the open window right now. So if you are going to check anything first, check 2023. Then start working backward through any earlier years that look wrong. Because the longer you wait, the more complicated this can become. The one form that can fix it. If you find a mistake, the form you need is Form SSA-7008. That is the request used to correct your earnings record. And yes, it is free. You can get it through Social Security, request a paper copy, or pick one up from a local office. The form asks for your information, the year or years you believe are wrong, and the earnings amounts you believe should be there instead. But this is where people lose valid claims over details that should have been simple. There are 2 mistakes that cause a lot of correction requests to fail before they even start. The first is assuming you can just upload it online and be done. In many cases, that is not how this works. These corrections often need to be mailed or delivered directly to your local Social Security office. The second mistake is even worse because it sounds small but can ruin everything: the missing signature. This form needs a real handwritten signature, not a typed name, not something half-finished. If the form is unsigned, it can be treated as if it was never filed at all. Imagine doing all the work, finding the discrepancy, collecting the records, filling out the form, and then losing your chance because the envelope went out without a proper signature. It happens, so when you fill it out, sign it in ink. Then check again before sending it. I don't have my old paperwork anymore. A lot of seniors stop right there. They think, I do not have those old W-2s. I do not have tax returns from 30 years ago, so there is nothing I can do. That is not true. And that assumption is costing people real money. If you no longer have your old records, you still have options. You can request wage information for the purpose of correcting your earnings record, and you can also get wage and income transcripts through the IRS using Form 4506-T. Those records can help show what was reported under your Social Security number and can be used as evidence when you submit a correction. So no, missing paperwork does not mean the trail is dead. It just means you need to take the retrieval route instead of the file cabinet route. What to do right now? Here is what I want you to do. First, log into your My Social Security account or create one if you do not have it yet. It is free and only takes a few minutes. Second, open your earnings history and go through it year by year. Do not skim it. Actually look. Watch for years that show zero when you were employed, years that look far too low, or gaps that do not make sense. Third, if you spot a discrepancy, get Form SSA 7008. Fill it out carefully. Add a short cover letter explaining the problem. Attach copies of any supporting documents you have. Sign the form in ink. Then either mail it by certified mail or bring it to your local Social Security office in person. Fourth, follow up. Many corrections are resolved within a few weeks to a few months. If the time passes and you hear nothing, check the status and keep your records organized. Because here's the truth. Social Security is not going to chase you down and tell you your record might be wrong. They are not hiding it from you. They are just not required to point it out. That distinction matters. The record is free to view. The correction form is free to file. The document retrieval options are free to use. And if your monthly benefit has been reduced because of an error, that money is not extra. It is not a favor. It is not a loophole. It is yours. It always was. The only thing standing between you and a higher monthly deposit may be one record you have never checked and one form you never knew you could file. So open the statement, go year by year, and see if your check is smaller than it should be.